we head to the phones as we're just 7 days away from the Iowa caucuses. And joining us right now, GOP political strategist, co-founder of MustReadTexas.com, Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Chad. Good morning. I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing well. Thanks for coming on today. We're 7 days away from the Iowa caucuses. Let's take a look at the Republicans. Fox News had a poll that came out yesterday, I believe, that showed Donald Trump 11 points up on Ted Cruz. Eric Erickson actually has a piece out today. He's sort of questioning whether or not that poll is real accurate. Apparently, the Fox poll, he thinks, oversamples a lot of folks out there. What are your thoughts on this race going into Iowa, and maybe some surprises that we could see 7 days from now?
Yeah, I'd be really surprised. Really surprised if Trump were to win by 10 points. I think it would actually, really kind of put to bed the question whether Trump is president or not. If he were to win Iowa by that margin, I think he would roll into New Hampshire and South Carolina and win all three. So the real question is going to be how large is the Iowa turnout? If we're looking at maybe a 25 or 30% increase on the traditional Iowa caucus turnout, that's probably what most people are expecting, and I think that probably is in pretty good shape. If you're looking at somewhere on that 1% more, that's where you start getting into a range where Trump could win. The question here really is Trump going to be able to turn out these first-time caucus goers? I think he has. I saw a poll that showed he had like 43% of people who plan to caucus for the first time, whereas if it's more traditional caucus goers, he's more like in the mid-20s. So that's really going to be the question, and we really just don't know. If you look at the registered voters in Iowa, there's fewer registered Republican voters in Iowa now than there were the caucuses 4 years ago. Now, you can register on caucus night at your caucus location, but you have to go to the right place. You have to have everything, in order. And I don't know that the Trump campaign is that organized. So, this is really the question. There have been a couple polls now that have shown Trump with solid leads in Iowa, and I think in many cases they're looking at a caucus turnout of something like 300,000 or 330,000 voters, which would be, like a 151% increase. And I think a lot of people think that's not realistic.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak. Over the weekend, the Des Moines Register endorsed Marco Rubio, who has, in a way, been, it seems by the national media, all but forgotten in Iowa, though I've been hearing that his campaign is doing pretty well on the ground in Iowa. The Des Moines Register endorsed him. Then we had Ted Cruz receive an endorsement late last night from Rick Perry. Will these endorsements matter in Iowa? Will they move the needle any for either of these candidates?
I think along the margins, I think it's possible. The Des Moines Register has been pretty good at picking the ultimate nominee, not necessarily good at picking the caucus winner. But look, I think you want any kind of positive momentum you can get in the last couple days, and so I do think these kinds of endorsements generally can help along the margins. But along the margins is what can make the difference. Mm-hmm. I think Rubio likely does finish third, which I think allows him to go on along the path that his campaign wants. Maybe finish second in New Hampshire and maybe first in South Carolina is kind of their goal. So. Really, the same questions that I've had about this race, a week ago, I think are still operative. Number one, does Cruz win Iowa? Number two, does Trump win New Hampshire? And number three, do we have a two-man race or a three-man race after New Hampshire? And it's either Trump and Cruz or there's a third candidate in there, Rubio or Christie or perhaps Jeb, that are still going to be alive and kicking going into South Carolina. Those are the three questions of the race that matter most, and we will know the answer, at least the answer to the first question, 1 week from tonight.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak, GOP political strategist, co-founder, MustReadTexas.com. Were you surprised by the Palin endorsement of Donald Trump?
Not really. If you followed Palin, she loves to make a big splash. Her endorsing Cruz would have been expected, would have been helpful to him, but it would have been expected. and she could make a much bigger splash by endorsing Trump. And look, she's been borderline irrelevant for the last, year and a half. She's not on Fox anymore. Some of these ventures she started have failed. The question really is, look, Trump's base is not the Palin voter. Trump's base is much more sort of moderate Republicans, independent voters. That's not who she helps you with. So there's a real question about whether she hurts more than she helps. I think she got him a lot of attention and probably, knocked the Cruz campaign off their stride for a day or so. But I just have to wonder, again, could she hurt you more with that traditional sort of moderate or independent, voter that's supporting Trump than the Tea Party voter that's maybe right now supporting Cruz? So, it surprised me a little bit. It was a rambling, bizarre endorsement speech, and I don't think you're going to see much from Palin going forward.
Any thoughts on Michael Bloomberg? If the 2016 race hasn't been maddening or crazy already, Michael Bloomberg is at least floating the idea of running as a third-party candidate, which I would think would only help the Republicans in a national election. Do you really think Michael Bloomberg jumps into this thing?
I think the only way he does is if Sanders is the nominee on the Democratic side, which is hard to imagine, and if Trump or Cruz is the nominee on the Republican side, and he really thinks there's space in the middle. But even in that circumstance, you're going to have the party infrastructure on both sides rally behind a Sanders and rally behind a Cruz or a Trump. And so the problem for someone like Bloomberg is there's no way to get the 270 electoral votes that you need. There's just no way to do it. He could win Connecticut. He could win Rhode Island. He could win maybe New York. Maybe in a dream scenario, he could win California. But that's about it. And those are all Democratic states. So if anything, he does hurt the Democrat more than he hurts the Republican. And the most likely scenario would be that no one gets 270 electoral votes, which then sends the election to the House. And I see no scenario where the House of Representatives is not Republican after the November election. So this is another sort of ego trip for him. Look, he's a billionaire. He can do it if he wants. But I generally think that you have to be fairly savvy to be a billionaire at that level. And ultimately, I don't think he's going to go waste $1 billion on an ego trip that has a very low chance of success.
With Donald Trump, National Review came out with a huge piece going after Donald Trump. What did you think about that piece? Was it smart for National Review to do it at this point? Do you think it'll backfire on National Review? Do you think it had any sway at all for conservatives out there?
Yeah, somebody quoted over the weekend a line from I think it was General MacArthur, which is, every problem in war can be explained by the following reason, and that is too late. And that's the question on National Review: is this too late to stop Trump's momentum? I'm not one of these people who thinks the nomination is determined already. Iowa and New Hampshire are pretty big hurdles, and I think there's a lot of uncertainty in both cases right now. That said, releasing it 10 days before Iowa is really cutting it pretty close. Now, they started working on this in December. They were slowed down by the holidays. It took them some time to get 22 different opinion pieces together from different conservatives. I'm glad they did it. I really am. From my standpoint, Trump is an unacceptable nominee because he's not a conservative, because he's an authoritarian. I'm glad they did it. I just have to wonder if it wasn't too late. And if we'll see. Conservatives do need to unite, and I think they are for the most part uniting behind Cruz. He's got to win Iowa. And if he wins Iowa, I think New Hampshire's a jump ball. And it's possible Trump doesn't win New Hampshire. And if that happens, it's a totally different race.
Matt, real quick, tell folks what they can find on your website today, and then the next time we visit with you is the day of the Iowa caucus. Should be very fun.
Should be. Boy, it's crazy. It's right around the corner. Obviously, we're covering all the news about Cruz and putting up all that news from 2016 on the website, mustreadtexas.com. Also covering the Texas legislature and all the legislative races that are not getting quite as much attention. You can find all the news, opinion, and blog items from across the state, mustreadtexas.com.
All right, Matt, as always, thank you very much. And folks, follow Matt on Twitter, at Matt Mackowiak. Matt, we'll visit with you next week.
Sounds good. Take care.
You too. That's Matt Mackowiak, mustreadtexas.com.